Hello, my name is Amy. Welcome back to the channel. This week, we are going to be trying to read more than I read last week. And we are going to be doing it using the swapping my screen time for reading time kind of framework. I have seen a lot of people come on here and do this challenge, question mark, and I'm going to be doing it just a little bit differently. What I have seen is people take the entirety of their screen time and swap it for something that they would prefer to do instead. My phone tends to break my screen time down into a bunch of different categories, and I really don't mind spending time on my phone if it is for productive/educational reasons. I do, however, mind how much time I am spending on social media, and so I am only going to be looking at that figure. Today is Monday, and so I have 2 hours and 23 minutes that I have to read today. How I spent 2 hours and 23 minutes on social media last week, Monday, is beyond me. I have no idea how that happened. All that I know is that I need to fix it and I need to address it, and so that's what this vlog is going to be doing. I'm currently reading two things. So number one is Justine by Lawrence Darrell. This is a story about four friends, and it's kind of one of the four friends' meditations on Justine and how he thinks that other people in the friend group have perceived her. So it's really interestingly done, in which each book in the quartet deals with the same kind of events, but they're told from different perspectives. The titular person is not actually the person we're going to be hearing from in the book. And so it is very slow, and it is very much just a character study, but it is a character study from outside the experience of said character, which I think is super interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. It is very much a no plot, just vibes kind of book, and I find that I am enjoying my time here. However, I do feel that it takes a lot more brain capacity to read this one, simply because it is a classic. And if you want to see me start this book, I have that in a vlog, which I will link up top. Hand in hand with Justine, I am also reading Furies. This is a short story collection by a bunch of different authors, some of them very well known. We have Ellie Smith, we have Margaret Atwood, we have Emma Donoghue, and what they are doing is they are taking words that have often been used to negatively describe women, and they are kind of reclaiming those words within these stories. It is super well done. There is some really good LGBTQIA+ rep in here. There are 16 stories in this collection. I have read the first 5. So far, 4 of the 5 have been a hit, which is a pretty good hit rate for a short story collection. I love short story collections for this very reason. There are a bunch of authors that I had never heard of that I am now very excited to go and check out. So without further ado, I think it's time to go and read. Good morning. I wanted to pop in to say that I finished Justine by Lawrence Darrell, and I have mixed feelings about this book. I am really not sure how to feel about this book because, yes, it is a classic, and so it is written like a classic, and obviously not everyone is treated with the same amount of respect back in the 1950s, and I try to keep in mind that it is a product of its time, and that doesn't make it any less upsetting when it happens, you know? And I think I'm so conflicted because despite all of that, what is happening in these pages is really something that got me thinking. I really enjoyed the fact that we had an unnamed narrator who was just giving us the lowdown of his perception of Justine, the titular character. And it was doing really fucky things with time and space and place, and I really enjoyed those elements of it quite a lot. This book is split into 5 different parts, and while part 2 does feel like it drags on a little bit, part 3 really had me hooked. I was really struggling to put this book down, and the tension that was created was impeccable. So who would I recommend this for is a great question. I think I would recommend this for people who like The Great Gatsby. It's kind of meandering in the same way, but it also features a cast of kind of terrible people. So I really need to sit and stew on this book and let you know my final thoughts, but these are just the initial ramblings that I wanted to share. The next question is, what do I pick up in its place? Because I could always do book 2 of this quartet. Hold on, I have it somewhere. There it is. I could always do book 2 of this quartet, which is Balthazar, and see what happens. I am really interested to see where this goes because I've gotten all of these character studies and sketches from this one guy's point of view, and I don't know who he is. And I think I'm really interested to see if the characters speak in the way or characterize themselves in the way that this other man has characterized them. I don't know. I feel like it's just a really interesting kind of concept and conceptually very strong. These books, I will say, are very pretentious. It is a little bit meta. You kind of need a dictionary at hand at all times. I learned so many new words that I did not know were a thing. And we talk about philosophy and religion and love and all of that jazz. And so, if you are someone who's turned off by pretentious books, please don't read these. You will not enjoy them. But it was pretentious in a way that I kind of enjoyed. And so, I'm not sure if I want to hop directly into the next one because while my interest is piqued and my curiosity is piqued, it is another classic. I don't necessarily feel the need to do two classics in a row. I usually try to avoid doing two classics in a row because they take so much brain capacity, so I'm not entirely sure if I should just jump into something easy. I did manage to read a little bit more of Furies, which is the short story collection that I am currently reading. And that's been a lot of fun, so I'm definitely going to continue with that, but I feel like I have the capacity for another story. So I am not entirely sure. Maybe what I'll do is I'll bring a selection of books and we can talk through them together, and then I'll just read the first chapters or first couple of pages of all of my potential picks, and then we go from there. Yeah, I think let's do that. I have selected a stack of books that I am interested in reading right now. I also forgot to mention the entire point of all of this is that I'm going to be swapping out my social media time for reading time, and today we only have to read for 53 minutes. And I did manage to read for the 2 hours and 23 minutes, was it? Yesterday, which I am feeling pretty good about. It's amazing how when you read, you finish books. Who knew? So I have grabbed this selection. So right at the top we have Balthazar by Lawrence Durrell. This is the second book in the Alexandria Quartet. This is the one I was talking about. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the first lines because I would be nosy. Landscape tones, brown to bronze, steep skyline, low cloud, pearl ground with shadowed oyster and violet reflections. That doesn't give me much to go on. I'm not entirely sure. I think I'm also hesitant to read this because Balthazar was my least favorite character in the previous book. So I don't know if he's going to do himself justice or if whoever is describing him is going to do him justice, but I thought he was the least interesting character out of everyone we followed. Next up, I picked up Lanny by Max Porter. I have had this book on my shelf for a really long time. And I've been putting off reading it because I read Max Porter's book, Grief is the Thing with Feathers, and I loved it. I devoured it in one sitting, and I've been so convinced that I'm going to enjoy this that I've been saving it for a rainy day, but I think today might be the day. So here we do have a blurb. The blurb reads, "Not far from London there is a village. This village belongs to the people who live in it and those who lived in it hundreds of years ago. It belongs to England's mysterious past and its confounding present. It belongs to families dead for generations and to those who have only recently moved here, such as the boy Lanny and his mum and dad. But it also belongs to dead Papa Toothwort, who has woken from his slumber in the woods, dead Papa Toothwort, who is listening to them all." See, that's a blurb that doesn't give much, but I'm so intrigued. I don't know what any of it means. The first line is, "Dead Papa Toothwort wakes from his standing nap an acre wide and scrapes off dream dregs of bitumen glistening thick with liquid globs of litter." That reads so nicely. Then I have Time as a Mother by Ocean Vuong. I got this for Christmas from John in 2024. And have also just been too scared to pick it up because I think I'm really going to enjoy it. I have been craving doing some poetry reading. I was going to read you the first stanza of the first poem, but it doesn't have, it's all a singular stanza, and so I will read you the first sentence. "He stood alone in the backyard, so dark the night purpled around him." Okay, that's not, honestly, I was expecting more. And then lastly, I picked up another nonfiction. I have Unwell Women by Eleanor Cleghorn. I also got this book from John, and I know that this one's going to make me really mad, but seeing as I enjoyed my last nonfiction so much, I am kind of in the mood to pick up another one. The preface reads, "Our bodies are our own. Before I was diagnosed with lupus, I didn't understand that medicine had a gender problem. Initial verdict is Lanny and Unwell Woman. I like the sound of those two the most. They are calling to me the most at this point in time. So I think the game plan is I'm going to read Lanny first because it's the shorter of the two. And then maybe we start Unwell Woman in this vlog, but I make no promises because I'm also still reading Furies. This has been your update, and hopefully I shall speak to you very soon. Happy Friday and happy My Chemical Romance reunion to those who celebrate. I was a huge My Chemical Romance fan back in the day, to the point where when they broke up in 2013, I was distraught and I publicly was in my feelings about it for about a week and a half until my parents pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay. And the answer was no, everything was not okay. So I just wanted to say to any fans who get to see them perform, one, enjoy it, sing your heart out, and two, I am so jealous. I am so jealous of you because I would love to watch them perform live. So that has just been taking up a lot of space in my cranium this week, and I've been listening to a lot of My Chemical Romance and reliving the nostalgia that music brings that nothing else quite compares to. Another thing we need to address is that it is Friday and I haven't updated this vlog in 2 days, and there is no real reason other than I got busy. So in order to make up for it, I'm going to be reading Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's slots today. All in all, I think I was being a little dramatic when I started this video because those 3 days only add up to 3.5 hours. Not entirely sure if last week was a particularly good self-controlled week, or if that is just the trend in my social media usage. Too scared to actually find out, if I'm being honest. I know that this week was particularly bad. I know that Wednesday was not a good brain day, and so we spent a lot of time on social media. That is neither here nor there, and that is not what we are going to be reading today. That's not what we've allocated for ourselves. So if you watched the last clip, you would know that I started Lanny by Max Porter. I started it on Tuesday and I finished it on Wednesday, which is very cool. It is very cool to have read a book in 2 sittings. I feel unstoppable. In this one, we follow a little boy named Lanny. But much like Justine, funnily enough, we never actually get Lanny's perspective. So we're set in this small little English town, and we follow Dead Papa Toothwort. He is one of our POVs. He is kind of like the forest spirit. He is kind of like a piece of folklore, and children have stories and myths about him. And what we do when we're following his perspective is we essentially get to eavesdrop on the town. He gets to listen in on conversations that take place around the town, and he is particularly drawn to Lanny and his whimsical nature. Lanny has a huge respect for the natural earth, and so Dead Papa Toothwort really enjoys eavesdropping on Lanny specifically. Other than that, we also follow Lanny's mom, Lanny's dad, and Mad Pete, who is an artist who lives pretty close by. And what happens in the story is it's split into 3 parts. What happens in part 1 is we kind of just establish the character of Lanny through everybody else's interactions with him. So Lanny's mom convinces Mad Pete, who is an artist, to take Lanny in for art lessons after school from time to time. And we get to see Lanny's mom as she's developing her career as a crime novelist. We get to see Lanny's dad as he's working his 9 to 5, and Mad Pete and the kind of inspiration that he draws from Lanny and Lanny's experience and expression and view of the world. Then in part 2, things take a turn that I did not expect. I will not tell you what that turn is because I don't think you're supposed to know. It's not in the blurb, so it took me completely by surprise. And then we have this like magical realism expose that takes place in part 3. Personally, I really enjoyed part 1 and part 2. Part 3 lost me a little bit, which is kind of sad, but part 2 was particularly well written. While I can't tell you too much about it, I can tell you that in part 1 you know exactly whose point of view you're reading from. Everybody's point of view is kind of introduced with the heading, either Lanny's mum, Lanny's dad, or Pete, and then in part 2 those titles go away. So you kind of have to use context clues to guess who is speaking, and that was a fun little puzzle to solve. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. I would really recommend this book. It is weird. It is about whimsy. It is about respecting nature. It is about art and the creation of art. And all in all, I really just enjoy Max Porter's creative voice. I love that his telling is always strange. His perspectives are always something a little bit weird, and that there's always a hint of magical realism in his stories, maybe more than a hint. He leans quite heavily on the magical realism in a way that I really enjoy. And all in all, very glad to have finally read this. Next up, I'll be picking up Unwell Women by Eleanor Cleghorn. This is a feminist expose on the medical industry. This is all about how women are misdiagnosed, mistreated, and how medical research doesn't really center the female body. I think this is going to be a really tough read, but one that I'm really excited for nonetheless. My favorite booktuber of all time, Alison Pages, really enjoyed this one, and so I have nothing but high hopes. Additionally, I am still reading Fairies, stories of the wicked, the wild, and the untamed. I haven't gotten much further in this one, I'm not gonna lie. Lanny just kind of swept me up in its storytelling. I've read just under half of this one, so hopefully we can make a nice big dent in it today. I know that you're allowed to read short story collections out of order, but I just can't find it in my heart to do so. But I did flip ahead because there is this little grey tinge on the pages, and I was really curious as to what that's about, and it turns out one of the short stories is actually a comic strip, which is super exciting. So I am very much looking forward to that one, but can't skip ahead and read it. The art style is very cool. It is a black and white comic, which is super fun. It reminds me of newspaper comics, which is cool. And I think I'm really just going to enjoy that. I love a comic, and I don't read enough of them because they're really expensive. So with that, I am going to sit down, I'm going to get reading, and then I will see you in a little bit. I was editing this footage and I realized that I didn't actually get any footage of the timers that I was using. So the moral of the story is, dude, just trust me. Just trust that I read the hours I said I read. Having said that, I managed to catch up on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's time slots, and it felt really good to be reading this week. It felt really good to kind of challenge the narrative that I don't have time to pursue my hobbies during the working week. I do have time, I don't have the discipline. That is the distinction. I really hope that I will take the momentum I have built this week and that it will just carry through to next week. We shall see, time will tell. So let's just take a second to talk through everything I read this week. I managed to finish Justine by Lawrence Durrell, which I started last week. This is a book that I am still very lukewarm about. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this book, and if you have any discussions on classic literature and whether or not we should still be reading classic literature, please do let me know. I know that people say that it is a classic for a reason, but it also doesn't feel good to read, if you know what I mean. So I am still trying to decide and debating whether I will be picking up the second book in this quartet, but overall, I think if you have a friend or a family member who enjoyed The Great Gatsby, they would probably enjoy this kind of writing style. Next, I finished Lanny by Max Porter. I think this one's really, really good for the naturalist in your life. I think somebody who has a respect for and admiration of nature, I think they might really enjoy this. But having said that, they also kind of have to be a fan of magical realism, so wherever that Venn diagram overlaps. Next, I finished Fairies. This is a short story collection. Unfortunately, the first short story was my favorite. However, the rest of the short stories were also really good. I really enjoyed the variety of different styles and genres that can be found in this collection, not only in format. We have a piece by Kirsty Logan that is written more like a poem than a short story. We have a comic strip. We also deal with different genres in fiction. We have just regular fiction. We have historical fiction and magical realism. So I really just enjoyed the variety that this one had to offer. Last but not least, I picked up Unwell Woman by Eleanor Cleghorn. I'm not very far into this one yet, so I cannot give you a review, but I will say that this one has been very accessible so far, and that I really appreciate. Wherever Cleghorn does use jargon, she explains it within the text, which is super helpful. I also really appreciate that there are footnotes and that you can go read up on the sources that she has indicated in the book if there is something that you would like to have more information on. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for hanging out and spending time with me. I promise the next time I do something like this, I will try to be more organized. This was baby's first time, and so she was a little bit messy, and that's fine. We learn. It felt really, really good to have you to keep me accountable this week. As much as the documentation of this process wasn't phenomenal, the experience was, and for that I thank you. I hope everyone is having a good day wherever you are, and I will see you next time. Bye.